Hello, everybody. Oh, got the recording.
Awesome, awesome. So hopefully everyone has a copy of the recipe for the pasta that will be prepared tonight by Alex. And again, it's the roasted tomato and feta pasta. And if everyone is familiar with TikTok, you've probably seen it. I had not seen it before this, so I had to look it up. But this is just kind of like a preview. Doesn't it look good? Look at all those nice
Well, that's so cute.
tomatoes and everything. It looks so fresh and good. It's going to be so delicious. So that's what we're going to be watching Alex make. And maybe hopefully some of you will be also preparing this dish with Alex as well. So let's learn a little bit more about Alex before we jump into this. So Alex is a native of Apollo Beach, Florida. Has anyone been to Apollo Beach, Florida? Really nice, huh?
I doubt it.
And
No.
awesome. Alex is a graduate of the University of Florida. Go Gators, right? Even though I'm a Bulldog, I took down my degree, so I've been having.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't have to leave. But...
My mom was a Gator, so I grew up in Gatorland.
I knew you were okay.
Yeah. I was all about Gators until I went to UVA. But Alex actually grew up with parents who he says were not the best cooks. So that's what inspired him to become a cook himself. And so up until the time that he said that they got cable and he got exposed to the Food Network, which I know could be a guilty pleasure for a lot of us, he started to obtain a lot of ideas and inspiration and start to make different dishes for his family. And so over time, he just became the family's cook. And so preparing and serving food became a passion for him. And he says that that's why his wife married him. So when Alex is not in the kitchen cooking for his loved ones and his friends, he's working at the Georgia Department of Public Health or hiking with his dog Chance. And hopefully we'll get to see Chance tonight too. He'll make an appearance.
Oh, he'll be around. Don't worry.
So without any further ado, I will turn it over to Alex. Or you guys want to introduce yourselves first to Alex? Maybe we can get a see who's all on the call. Let's do that.
Yeah, and see who's cooking too. I'm interested.
So here you have Rita and Steve Brett. We're in Decatur, Georgia.
Down the street from me.
Nice to meet you. Awesome.
And this is Barbara. I'm also in Decatur down the street. And I already have so many questions about how much and when and all that.
We
So
will cover everything. Don't worry.
thank you.
Very simple.
Hi, everyone. This is Malia.
Hi, Malia.
She dragged me into this.
Definitely, of course, after work hours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Francesca, and I am in North Carolina.
Cool.
Francesca.
Hi everyone, I'm Ankita. I am in Tucker, but I'm also cooking along, so I'm excited.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm excited to see everyone's final dish.
Anyone else? Let's see.
Raise your hand.
Krista, would you like to introduce yourself? Hi. Let's see. Vera?
So I'm Vera Osadach. I work for the CDC out of Hyattsville, Maryland. I work on N. Haynes, and I just looked it up. I've been to Apollo Beach. I actually just got a certificate from the USF. So,
Oh, cool. I'm going to USF right now. My wife just graduated from there for their MPH. Nice.
great.
Cool.
Nice. Small world. Let's
Really
see.
is.
Giselle?
Hi, I'm Giselle. I'm in Barbados.
Nice.
Ooh, love Barbados.
Let's see. Who have we missed?
I see a hand raised.
Oh yeah, let's go to Kevin Delaney.
But they're
Like we have a
muted.
lot of cooks.
Yeah, we have a lot of cooks in this house. Aiden, you want to
Yeah.
introduce yourself?
I am Aiden. This is my sister, Peyton.
Nice.
My dad was the one who just talked.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'll go get muffins.
Yeah, and the cat will make an appearance again at some point.
Oh, nice.
We look forward to it.
Yeah. As long as it's no cat fur in the sauce, we should be good.
Oh, nice. Okay. Let's see, Sam.
That's my wife. She's over here at the table. She's
Hi.
There's
Hi,
Sam.
Sam. Let's see, Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the wife with our crazy dog.
Cool, cool.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome. Let's see, did I miss anyone? Shireen?
Oh, hi, I'm Shireen. I'm out in Smyrna, and I saw this recipe in the Washington Post, so I'm really excited to make it.
Wow, TikTok made the Washington Post.
We've got a lot of people cooking.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Let's see, did I miss anyone? I know the names kind of jumped as people jumped in. No? All right. Well, welcome everyone again. And I'm so excited. I've got a little cook that's running around, so I'll be on and off camera as I'm going to try to cook along too. We'll see how this works with a newly 2-year-old son. So we'll
All right.
see. But I'd like to turn it over to you, Alex.
Yeah, let's get rolling. Everyone can hear me okay, right? We good on volume? Okay, perfect. So we're going to start with just kind of the fundamental recipe, and I'm going to be adding a few extra things. So you can either kind of do that or just some ideas for the future. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to turn my camera down because my face is not that important for this. So you can see like what I'm doing. But it also means like if you are waving for help or something, I can't see it. So just pipe up if you have a question or anything, and I'll tilt the camera back up. All right, so the basics that we need for this recipe, if we're making just a fundamental version, a dish that can go in the oven. So I'm using an 8x8 square baking dish. We need our tomatoes, right, which are great and in season right now. So I've got the blister pack, if it'll open, of our great tomatoes. I've rinsed them. And I'm actually going to mix it up, and I'm going to use these are 2 dry pints. Right, so this is called a dry pint. So I'm going to use the golden one to see how that turns out. You don't need to use 2. You could use just 1. You could use 2.5 or 3. Depends how much tomato you want, how tomatoey you want it to be, because these are going to cook down quite a bit and get nice and roasted. So they're rinsed. All I'm going to do is go ahead and add them in to our baking dish. All right, so tomatoes in. The next thing we're going to need is just some olive oil. So just extra virgin olive oil. Nothing particularly fancy or special. And we are going to measure out a 1/2 cup. And we are going to pour almost all of it in. We're going to leave a tiny drizzle still left in our measuring cup. You'll see why in just a minute. But we're going to measure 1/2 cup. And if you don't get it exact, don't worry, it's not going to affect it. And we're just going to pour this over the tomato. Again, I left just a tiny drizzle there in the bottom. And at this point, I like to add some black pepper. Freshly cracked is always going to be best. If you have a pepper mill. If you don't worry about it. It's still going to be good. I tend to like a lot of black pepper. One of my aunts in my wife's family thinks black pepper is very spicy. So sometimes she struggles with my food, but I love lots of black pepper. So we've got black pepper in there. Now we just need to give this a quick stir. Get the handy wooden spoon that my mom used to hit me with when I wasn't being good. All right, so we're just going to toss this to make sure that we got the pepper evenly incorporated and all the tomatoes have some oil on them. Now we're going to need our feta, which I'm going to pull out of the fridge. And so this is the feta that I'll be using. Got it right from Kroger over in the little fancy cheese aisle. And I've already cracked this package open and just drained the liquid that came with the feta off. Okay, so you might want to do that now. If you have a little liquid left, not a big deal. I'm going to get a little bit left that I missed. So we're going to take our block of feta. And we're just going to nestle it right in the middle of our tomatoes. I'm going to kind of push it down just a little bit. It's on a layer of tomatoes, and there's also tomatoes around it. I like to hit it with a little bit of pepper. And then this is where our drizzle of olive oil is going to come in. We're just going to drizzle it over the feta. And what the feta will do, the reason we're using this nice high-fat feta, this one's from Bulgaria, I think, is that it's going to brown really nicely. It's going to get soft, and it's going to help create a sauce with all these tomatoes that reduce down. All right, so this is the basic version. If we want to, I went ahead and minced a garlic clove. Not even really minced, but it's nice and big kind of pieces. And I'm going to add this in here, just kind of around this feta. Kind of nestle it into the tomatoes, and these will get really soft and sweet and fragrant while they're in the oven. We're going to do garlic another way too. We're going to roast it whole. I saw somebody that was ready to do that earlier. So we have two ways to add garlic to this. This is just one, very easy to do. Go ahead and chop up a clove of garlic if you'd like. But this is what our final product looks like. Feta nestled in there, olive oil and pepper, a little garlic. We're going to go right into that oven. So I'm over here off camera. I promise there's no tricks involved. It went into the oven. I don't have the budget of Food Network, so there's not one already made, or a backup one to that one. So we're also going to do a few extra things that we're going to add to this dish. Now, these are just ideas. This is what I'm doing tonight, but you could do any variation of these. One thing we're going to do is some roasted red pepper. I've just taken the top off of these, and I'll show you how we're going to slice them up to roast really nicely. We're going to do a kind of quasi-caramelized onion. I've already gone ahead and chopped one onion. We'll chop another together. We're going to do the whole clove of roasted garlic. Super easy technique, and I use it for all kinds of dishes. And then I picked up a couple really nice lamb sausages that we'll roast at the same time as this is going. So that way we can add a protein if we want. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our roasted red pepper. Now I took the top off already, so you can see that it's been decapitated. You always end up with these kind of chunks on the top after you cut the stem off. So all we're going to do is get them to about a right size for roasting. So this is about a quarter of the top, and I'll probably cut it into thirds. We'll end up with chunks like this. When we roast these, we don't want to go very, very small pieces. They'll probably burn or they get really crispy and dehydrated. We want to have a nice kind of bite-sized chunks. So then we'll take our whole pepper, and all we need to do, go right in half, half again. We'll take our knife and de-rib it. Right? So this is called the rib of a pepper. And when I pull the core out, these are not huge, but we still want to remove them. If this was a hot pepper, this is where a lot of the oils that give us that sensation of heat are stored, but they have a different texture. If we have a little bit of white, that's fine. So we're going to slice long ways. But if we look at this pepper, it's almost too long to actually eat with our pasta if I just kept it whole. So we're going to go half, like so, so it's a little bit shorter. And then we'll just stand it up on the cutting board and just bring the knife right down on top, making sure we don't slice our fingers, because I promised Monica I wouldn't cut any fingers off, Monica and Michelle. The same thing with this piece, and the benefit of slicing like this as opposed to flat is the knife will glide through the pepper much more easily. Also makes it harder to cut yourself because the knife's sharp edge is never pointing at you. All right, so I'm going to do one more quarter piece here. Same thing. We're going to take the ribs off.
Could you slow down a little bit? I didn't get my pepper ready yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where are you, Barbara?
I didn't get it washed and everything, so I'm rushing to catch up with you.
No problem, because I cheated a little bit and I prepped a little bit ahead of time, and this is not going to take a lot of time to cook. So if you really wanted to, I'll kind of not go off topic, but talk about peppers for a little bit. You could also make this a hot dish, right? So if you want a little bit of heat, I wouldn't do a jalapeno, but maybe something like a habanero. It's got a nice fruity flavor, would go really well. But these red bell peppers, really little heat. You could use a green bell pepper. That would work just fine as long as you like that green bell pepper flavor. You know, there's a lot of people that, for whatever reason, don't enjoy it so much that what was that movie, Pixar movie, Inside Out, right? The American version, it was the broccoli that the kids didn't want to eat in the movie. In Japan, it's green peppers, green bell peppers, because in Japan, that's like the vegetable the kids don't like. It's a weird pepper fact that I remember for some reason. But slice your peppers into about yay big pieces. And all we're going to do with them is throw them on a handy dandy baking sheet. This is a small mini one that I love because I can throw it into my oven next to almost anything. All we're going to do is put a little bit of olive oil down on the baking sheet. You could also toss the peppers in a bowl. Either way is going to work. We're going to toss them in the sheet pan, mostly because it reduces another thing I have to wash, which is always great. So we're just going to give a splash of oil. And then we'll just toss the peppers on, like so. I am going to season everything with salt and a little bit of pepper. One thing I would caution you against with this particular recipe is adding too much salt to any one component because the feta is so salty. So I'm going to do just a pinch of kosher salt. Okay, if you're using a fine sea salt, maybe a half teaspoon, something in that range. So we're going to come back with our handy tongs. You have to click them together to make sure they work. That's the rule. And just toss them like so. And that's just enough to get a little bit of oil on them, spread the salt and pepper. And then we're just going to move them around so they're not all stacked on top of each other. Now, like I said earlier, this doesn't take that much time to roast. So if you don't get to this stage for even another like 10 minutes, it's going to have plenty of time in the oven. So don't stress about it. You're also going to take these to however done you like them. If you like to eat them raw, you totally could do that. Toss them in your pasta. If you want them really, really cooked down, put them in early. So I'm going to let them hang out over on the side because we're not going to put them in quite yet. So the next thing we're going to do that's really easy is roasted garlic. So this is a whole head of garlic. All we need is a little tin foil, a little olive oil, and we're going to turn this into like the most delicious thing ever. So we take our garlic, we need a knife, and we need to find kind of up here at the top where we want to slice through. So our goal is to slice through the top of the garlic to expose the cloves without losing too much of it, right? Because if we cut it in half, then we lose half the garlic, and that would make me sad. So we're going to go up towards the top here. We're going to slice through so that we expose all these nice little nuggets of garlic goodness. And then we're going to take a small amount of foil. We just need a little strip. And we're going to make a little pouch. So all we're doing is putting it right in the center and bringing the foil around it. Make a nice little place for the garlic to sit, because now we're just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil right on top. This is a small amount. This is a super great technique if you want to make garlic bread or any pasta dish or anything you want to be able to spread garlic onto. Because when we take this garlic out, those cloves are going to be soft and jammy, and you can just spread them with a butter knife. So we got the olive oil in here. We're just going to seal it up. We want to make sure we don't have any holes around the side or in the bottom where the olive oil is going to come out. And then we take a little pouch, twist it, and there we go. So this is going to cook, depends how large your garlic is, how high your oven's set to. I'm going to check it in about 15 or so minutes. Our goal is to get the garlic nice and soft, so we'll just poke it with a fork. But we want to make sure it doesn't burn. Right? Burned garlic is super bitter. It kind of ruins everything. But we're going to pop this right into the oven. It can just sit on the racks, or if you want, and if you're afraid it's going to pop and drizzle oil in your oven, put it on a baking sheet or a pan. I'm going to pop mine straight in the oven. And put it right in the front so I can just grab it out. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is a quick caramelized onion. All we're going to do is slice up an onion. I've got a saucepan. Use a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil, and it's not quite a caramelized onion because that's going to take several hours to make, but it's pretty close. Brings a really nice sweetness, nice savoriness, and it's fantastic in so many different dishes. So let me get my garlic remains out of the way. All right. So regular, I would call this a medium white onion. It's not super small, not super huge. We're just going to slice it right in half. Okay. Now we're going to find the root end. We have the stem end. So in the root, we're just going to take the knife and quickly slice that little root piece out. Seen a few things about how this is going to cause it to release the gases that make you tear up. I think Gordon Ramsay said that. I'm not sure I buy that. It's really the cutting of the cell walls that release the gases that make us cry. And I think it also really depends on the individual. My wife sobs when onions are cut. I am sometimes affected. Okay, so we've taken the stem out, halved onion. You can do a couple different things in terms of slicing it. We want to cut with the striations, with the lines. How thin you go is up to you. The thinner it goes, the faster it will cook, and the pieces of onion will more kind of melt as they soften up. The larger pieces will have a little bit more bite, a little more texture. So it's really how do you want it to be in the final dish. I'm going to cut them so they are about this thick, which I mean is maybe not even a 1/4 inch. So this thickness will have some texture at the end. Okay, it's not going to be something I'm struggling to chew, or it's going to give me a big crunch, but it's also not going to melt into the dish. So I'm just going to do half of this onion because I've already got one slice over here, and then I'm just fanning it out. And as I'm looking through these pieces, I'm making sure I don't have any big chunks that I missed because I'm not a professional chef. My chopping skills are not perfect. So usually in the middle, there might be a piece that's kind of held together. I'll come back and just chop them half. So all we really need to do is dump these in. Right? This is about 1½ onions. You could just do 1 onion, you could do ½ onion. It's going to be about the same. And I've got a tablespoon measure. So we're going to use a technique where we use 2 different types of fats to cook this. The first will be olive oil. So a tablespoon of olive oil. Just dump it right in there. And you can eyeball it. This is not exact, but I know people like to have measures. So we use a tablespoon. And then we're going to grab just unsalted butter, which has the handy lines on the side. So we can cut, pretty close to a tablespoon of butter. So this is a technique called fortifying the butter. And all we're doing is combining it with olive oil because butter has a low smoke point. So does olive oil, but we're not getting it that high. But butter, the milk solids in it will brown and eventually burn, and the oil will help prevent that. So we have our oil, our butter, a few cracks of pepper, a pinch of salt, kosher salt, and then it's just going to go onto the oven or on the stove. Give it a little mix. Medium low, and probably about the time we are ready to pull our tomatoes, we'll have some nice browning going on. We'll babysit it. We'll just stir it every 15 minutes. If you notice there's not enough browning or it's not much browning as you'd like, just turn up the heat a little bit. But we do want to watch it because onions have a high sugar content. They can start to burn a little bit. So onto the stove this goes. And that's going to hang out. Now, it's been a little bit of time, so my peppers that were just hanging out, I'm also just going to throw in the oven. Again, cook them however long you want. But I figure for those pieces, probably about 20, 25 minutes. They'll have a little bit of browning. The edges will crisp up. It'll be really tasty. We can also pull them out early. They don't need to be piping hot when they're ready to eat. They're going to get mixed with everything else. Okay. The very last thing that we're going to add and remember, all this is in addition to like that base recipe that was just olive oil, tomatoes, and feta. So if you got those three things in the oven, you're already doing fantastic. The other thing we're going to add is this really nice, let me see if we can, let me pull it out of the bag here. Went to the Cab Farmers Market and got really beautiful lamb sausages. So, and funny enough, they were out of feta. So I figured it was all of you guys buying up the feta that made me also have to go to Kroger today. But we have a really nice lamb sausage. This is a French style, so we can see the herbs in there, some rosemary. Really pretty. So I got 2 French style and 2 Moroccan style. Almost any type of sausage would go really well in this. Probably skip a breakfast sausage. The maple and feta combo is probably a little weird, but chorizo, even a bratwurst, Italian sausage, all are going to work really well. And the beauty of them, look at this beautiful dark Moroccan sausage, is that we can roast them right in the oven next to the pasta, or next to the tomatoes, and there's almost no work involved, which is always a plus. You can probably hear the dog drinking very loudly. We'll do like the obligatory dog shot. So we got a good minute here. Oh. This is what he looks like. It's weird. All right. And now, yes, I'm going to wash my hands. I think someone else is talking about cat hair in the food. The dog hair is an equal concern. So always washing as we go. Oh, now he thinks he's going to get something. So we've got the sausages here on the cutting board. I'm going to throw them just into a pan that can go in the oven. Okay, so if you're going to use a non-stick or something like that, make sure it is oven safe. Particularly if it has a handle that might melt, just look for that. Most of them nowadays are oven safe, which is great.
So we'll do this.
I'm being really safe in using stainless steel.
Are you going to add spinach?
Not to this particular one. I thought about it. But I looked at all of the options that I put on the document and realized it'd be a little much to do every single one. If you're gonna do spinach, all you need to do is saute it. You can do it on low in a pan or a saucepan, and just wait till the very end. I like to season it with just salt, pepper, and some minced garlic. Works really well with a little olive oil.
And
You
what
can
about
blanch
the
it.
basil? What about the basil? Where does that go?
So the basil, we've got a little bit of fresh basil here. You can also use dried. This goes at the very end.
Okay, thank you.
If we did the basil now, the problem would be as it cooks, all of the oils in here that give it that really, really great scent are going to be totally cooked out. So we're going to wait to the very end, and we're actually going to hand tear it. So that's just sitting there off to the side. Again, if using dried, that will work perfectly too. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put my sausages in there. We're just going to keep an eye on them. I'm not sure how long these are going to take to cook. They're a little bit skinny. So we're just going to baby them. We're going to watch and see, do we have browning happening? I'll check them every 15 minutes or so. All right. So the very last thing we need to do before we have a drink, because it's about that time, it's a little past 7 o'clock, is we're going to make sure we've got our pasta water going. So I've got a pot of water already on the stove. I've got my pasta here, so I'm going with just a rigatoni. Any of your kind of tubular pasta is going to work really well. The kind of spaghettis, linguinis of the world don't work super well for this. Oh, we have a farfalle. Oh, you get, so you're the one who was at the farmer's market stealing all the feta. That was Rita. That's why I couldn't find it today. So most pastas are going to work. And if you do just have a spaghetti, it's probably going to be fine. Yeah, ditalini will work, Barbara. Ditalini is going to be a little smaller, so just make sure you're tasting it and doesn't get too cooked. My great-grandparents were Italian immigrants, so we've always had the al dente pasta. So cook it to your liking, but do make sure you salt the pasta water.
Should I do the whole pound?
Yes, I'm gonna do the whole pound.
Thank you.
You can do, if you don't want the whole pound, you don't have to. You're just going to, have maybe more tomato than pasta, which is totally fine. This is also a dish you don't necessarily need pasta to eat. You could eat it with something else if you're looking for a low carb kind of deal. I just like pasta too much. So we're going to get the water going, and we still have quite a bit of time. One thing I would caution you against is don't use too much water. Right? A lot of people are going to use a really large pot of water. We want just enough to cover the pasta. Using too much water is going to make it so that it takes a long time to boil, and we're going to waste that water. But once we get to the end of our pasta cooking process, we're going to save some of that water. And we're going to use the starch that's in there to help emulsify our tomato and feta. So if we use less water, we have a more concentrated starch pasta water, which is really nice. So I think we're getting there. I'm going to kick on my stove to get my pasta water going. Then I'm going to check in with you guys, see where everybody's at. If we need to catch up on anything, cover anything, recover anything, and then I think we'll make a cocktail. So let me get the water going. Also a good time to check on everything that's cooking. As our tomatoes and olive oil come up to temp, we're going to start seeing all these little bubbles coming up from the top of that pan, which is really neat. We'll see the tomatoes start to burst eventually, probably about 25 minutes till we hit that point. But everyone's going to cook a little bit differently because we all have different ovens, different baking trays and so on. So how's everybody doing?
Good, Alex. How much of this spinach would I use to saute? Half of it, all of it?
So, you know, with spinach, the thing is, it cooks down so much. I would do the whole thing, because that whole thing is going to be a small amount. It really is. And you could blanch it if you want. I prefer to saute it.
Yeah. My Italian to saute it in olive oil with garlic and breadcrumbs.
There you go. It's not going to be bad at all. It's going to be delicious.
No, but I'll leave the breadcrumbs out this time.
I probably should have done some spinach. I looked at it and I was like, well, we're not going to be that healthy today. So you're doing better than me.
This is my 91-year-old mother-in-law from New York. 93.
Hi.
Whoa.
Oh, we went off.
He'll be back.
We got to get her opinion on it when it's done.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep. So
How's the rest of our cook along folks coming? I know we had Barbara, we had Kevin, Monique. I think Michelle was doing it. Ankita. Everyone doing all right?
So far, so good. This garlic smells amazing, Alex. Oh my goodness.
Did you chop it up or are you doing the whole garlic?
The whole garlic.
Once you get that down, it's so easy that you're going to use it all the time.
I love the idea. My son loves garlic bread, so he's looking in the oven like, what's in there?
It makes some of the best garlic bread.
Nice.
And even Malia backed out on cooking along with me, so I have to give her a hard time. She's not going to turn her camera on.
Not to worry, I am taking notes.
But when I come over next, you got to make this. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So let's just tidy up here. I think we should make a drink. I think I deserve it. So we're going to do really, really simple. Let me get over to our drink area, move the mangoes. So we're going to do an Aperol spritz. All right, so if you're not familiar, Aperol is the bitter Italian liqueur, or Amaro, of Venice, right? So northeastern Italy. So the Aperol spritz is kind of the summer drink of that region of the world. Almost every liquor store is going to have Aperol. It's probably about $26 for a bottle, but it's going to last you quite a while because you're not drinking it straight. It's got a delicious, slightly bitter, slightly sweet citrus flavor. And the classic cocktail to make with it is an Aperol spritz. So we're just going to take a wine glass and put some ice in it. Nice and full with ice. One of the things that people do is skimp on the ice, right? But when you go to some place and they give you a lot of ice, a lot of times if it's a good bar, they're not trying to cheap out on their drinks, but the more ice you have, the less dilute your end product will be. You only do a little bit of ice, it's gonna get really watered down. It's not exactly great. So good amount of ice. We're gonna need Aperol. We're gonna need a sparkling wine, which is also refrigerated. In this case, my go-to is always a Prosecco. It's not as dry as champagne. It's not super, super sweet like a Moscato. It's right in the middle. This is actually a fun story. The Prosecco we bought for my wedding that we have a whole case of because we forgot to pull it out for any toasts because everyone was already drunk. So I have a lot of Prosecco. And then we do the traditional struggle to open the top. And right now, I'm starting to smell the garlic. And I'm also smelling my onions. So I know they're starting to get brown. If you start to smell that kind of really nice sweet onion, that's kind of a key to me that I'm going to go and turn the heat down just a touch. Yep. All right, so I gave the onions a swirl. Kevin, you can use Campari, yes. All right, so if you're not familiar, Campari is another bitter Italian liqueur, another Amaro. They look about the same. Campari always comes in a liter, but it's a darker color, much more bitter. It has more of a grapefruit flavor. It's the Amaro of Milan, so northwestern Italy. You can do a Campari spritz. You might need to add some simple syrup because it is going to be more bitter. Another option would be something like a sweeter orange liqueur, like Cointreau, Grand Marnier. Goes really well with the citrus flavor and adds a little sweetness. It's really going to be kind of what your palate is. I like Campari, but it's a little bitter for some people. Aperol is a little bit more approachable if you're not used to those bitter liqueurs. So back to Aperol Spritz. We've got our Prosecco. I'm going to get the cork off without shooting it through a window into my face. There we go. Okay. So into our glass full of ice. I'm going to measure this just for your guys' benefit, but you kind of eyeball it. We're going to call for 3 ounces of Prosecco, which is hard to measure because it's so foamy. It's roughly 3 ounces. We're going to do 2 ounces of Aperol. So you can also think of this as parts, 3 parts Prosecco, 2 parts Aperol. And then traditionally we're going to use a sparkling water. The only sparkling water I have right now is Kroger brand lemon lime, which will be delicious. Normally you'd use an unflavored, but you could also make it your own by switching up the different flavor sparkling water. So about 1 ounce of that. I'm going to give it a quick stir just to make sure that it's all incorporated. Aperol has sugar, so it's more dense than those other ingredients, so we want to make sure it's fully incorporated. And then we give this to the wife, because that's what you do.
Thank you, dear.
And that keeps me married. Okay, so that's our base recipe. What I would encourage you guys to do if you like these sorts of drinks is make your own version. So I've got a house version that I'm going to make. It's going to be very similar. We're going to punch up the flavor a little bit, have a little bit more alcohol. That's just how I prefer it. So my version is going to be a glass of Chenin Blanc, very nice. A 1 glass full of ice. So for my version of an Aperol Spritz, we're using the same ingredients. Where we're going to do 2 ounces of Aperol. The 3 ounces of Prosecco, if you want to measure it, I'm going to kind of eyeball it here. Then, because Aperol already has an orange flavor, I'm going to hit it with a little Cointreau, just half an ounce. I'm sorry, a 1/4 ounce. So this is a very small amount. It's a little sweetness, a little bit of orange. And then to kind of beef it up a little bit, it's summer. I'm a big gin fan. Tanqueray is a pretty standard gin. We're going to use a 1/2 ounce of gin. So, you know, way less than like a shot. But remember, Aperol's got alcohol in it. The sparkling wine has alcohol. We don't want this to knock our socks off. We're just punching up the flavor. And then I'm going to hit it with 1 dash of orange bitters. You can go overboard with the bitters. 1 dash is just enough. Give it a stir. And then let's see. Yeah, so we've punched up the orange flavors that are already in the Aperol a lot, which I really like. Maybe it's because I'm from Florida, love citrus, but really orangey, a little bit of bitterness, And then there's a gin kind of playing in there a little bit with a floral note, a little bit of like pine. It's really, really tasty. You could drink a bunch of these like a summer night. I won't say that I haven't drinking several on these hot summer nights, but that's neither here nor there. So what is everybody else drinking? We've got Rita and her mother-in-law who's just pounding them back. I love it. This one's for you. What's everyone else drinking out there? No one has any drinks?
I'm drinking a peanut butter porter.
Peanut butter porter, nice. From where?
That's a very good question. I think it was given to me the last time I was in Atlanta, and I'll have to go look at the can. So I'll get back to you on that.
That sounds delicious, though. Somebody said red wine.
It's gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic, one of my favorites.
But he's retired to the couch now.
There you go. Mango margarita, that sounds good. Where'd you get that from?
Pretty
Got
good.
a Riesling,
Love it.
Germany. Heinz Eiffel.
Very pretty.
Good.
Ooh.
Drinking Riesling. You're stuck.
Having this and peach and enjoying it.
All right.
A little kid friendly and mom friendly.
Don't mix them up. And with this dish, there's a lot of ways you could go if you're looking for wine. But just with it being summer, you know, I'm going to avoid the big reds. I don't really even keep them in my house in the summer. I think in the red category, I recommend a Shiraz, which is going to have a nice, like, kind of mellow fruit, low tannin, something unoaked. If we're going to do a Chardonnay, probably something unoaked, just in the summertime is kind of preferred. My water is boiling away, so I'm going to go ahead and add my pasta. We still are a little bit of ways out, but we can go ahead and get it cooked, and we can kind of hold it off heat. It'll be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and dump my noodles into the water. And make sure you salt that water. My great grandmother used to say it should be like seawater. So we want it to be quite salty so it seasons that pasta. This is also a great time because it's been maybe 20 minutes or so. Check on your tomatoes, okay? See where they're at. Your olive oil should be nice and hot. Maybe it needs a little stir, but typically this recipe doesn't require that. So just peek at it. I'm also going to check on my other ingredients that are going away, my sausage, my onion, my pepper, just to see if they need a toss, maybe come out of the oven. So let's all check in and then check back in with each other. All right, so I've actually decided to turn my oven up because I've got quite a few items in there. I think it's dropped my temperature down a little bit, so I popped mine to 450. So if you're putting up multiple items in there, it might be something you want to do. The other thing I'm going to show you guys is these onions. So we've started to get some nice little browning here, and that is really not what you're going to see from a traditional caramelized onion, where you do low heat for a very long time, and the sugar in the onion starts to caramelize. This is mostly from that butter. And so this is where we kind of get that quick caramelized onion by using the butter and going at a higher heat, browning the butter a little bit. And it will start to turn the onion sugar brown. But this is where we're getting all that flavor, that dark brown at the bottom. So we're just going to give it a swirl, full stir, back on the heat. All right. This is always the hardest part. because it's the waiting part.
Alex, what color are the peppers going to be when they're done? Are they going to be blackened or are they just going to be shrivelly?
Well, they should still be red. You might have a little blackening on the tips, on the very skinny parts, but we want to pull them out before they get there. You know, it's not like we're going to char them. You know, if I do like charred peppers on the grill where the skin is all black all the way around, little bit of black, not cooked super to death though.
Okay.
So if they're already there, pull them out.
Okay.
He's drinking.
I'm going to show them to you.
Yeah. You're the only people brave enough to show me what you're cooking, so I'm thrilled. You know, those are looking pretty good. I might taste one, right? See, is it still at the level of crunch that you want? It should be kind of nice and soft. If you want them to have a little bit of a bite, pull them early. But those look like they're probably good.
They might want another minute.
Okay. And that's the thing about this kind of recipe. It's more of a technique than a recipe, right? It's roasting the tomatoes in a lot of olive oil and adding other stuff to it. You know, it's not like a super technically precise thing. But I am curious to see what everyone else is doing. They're all remaining hidden. So it's either going fabulously for them or terribly.
Yeah, unmuted.
Here, say hi, Parker.
Oh, you are unmuted.
Hello.
He's gonna eat it.
We got something from you. It's also very good.
I'm glad to hear it. Gonna taste good? I believe in you guys.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I think our tomatoes and cheese are coming along nicely. I did try the Campari with some white wine and sparkling water, and ended up with grapefruit. So you are
There you
correct.
That's good. I'm gonna have to give that a try with the Campari. I haven't done that particularly. That combo.
Probably not as refreshing as the Aperol, but it works as long as you're willing to try something a little bitter. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Campari, so you've given me an idea. All right, so for those of you that are going to do the whole garlic, now is probably a good time to check on it. So now you can grab that tinfoil pack with your fingers, but be careful. I'm going to use a set of tongs, put it on the plate. All right, we are getting some good smells. Now, because we use the foil, you can grab the top of it because it dissipates heat very quickly, but be careful grabbing the garlic and the oil because it's gonna hold on to heat pretty good. So all we're gonna do is open the top of this packet up, get a little steam. I'm just gonna take a butter knife or a fork, and we're just gonna poke it. So we're gonna see, is that clove tender? If it still has a give, we need a little bit more cooking. Okay, so mine is still not there. My knife doesn't go into it. So I'm looking, I might add a splash more olive oil to mine. If it looks particularly dry, you could do that. If you still have a little oil in there, it's just fine. We want that oil on the clove itself. We'll wrap it back up and let it go for a little bit longer. This is a great technique if you have people who don't like garlic, because you can roast the whole head and add the cloves to individual plates instead of the dish itself. Because sad as it is, there are people who garlic doesn't agree with them. A good friend of mine at CDC has that problem. He used to cook for her all the time. It took a while to figure out why. She always had an upset stomach because everything I make has garlic in it. Vera's got an update on the porter. Brown cheese. Now, Vera, I wish I had that problem where I didn't remember where I got beers from because people were just giving them to me all the time. But I don't think we share that affliction, unfortunately.
You have to hang out with a different type of people.
I
Just
guess
kidding.
I'm with the wrong crowd.
No,
Hell
but the
yeah.
Sweet Baby Jesus. I'm sorry, go ahead.
My favorite store for beer, hands down, is Hell Yeah.
I haven't been there yet.
What happened? Oh, I thought you burned your onions. No, but
No.
Duclaw out of Maryland has a really good chocolate peanut butter porter. And the best I've ever had is Millersburg Brewing Company in the middle of Amish country of all places. And they have a peanut butter porter and they don't use any peanuts. So if you have a peanut allergy, it's the best of both worlds. But this is a pecan pie porter. And yeah, if I had my camera on, I'd show you the can. The cans are very cool these days. They're almost like little artworks, which is why I collect them. So my house is full of empty cans. So you got to do what you got to do to get those cans.
Trading all kinds of stuff. I unfortunately live in walking distance to like 4 breweries, so yeah, go quite often. All right. Anybody else want to check in, see how they're doing, recipe wise?
So far, so good.
Good, good, good. All right, I'm going to check on my one more time because as I start to brown, pickle those onions, they get closer and closer to the point where they'll burn. So I want to check them a little bit more often, stir them a little more often. So I'm going to do that.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yep.
Where do you run more? Do you watch like?
No, you're like cutting in and out.
Our tomatoes are starting to blister. Yay!
Beautiful. They should start to pop and kind of blossom. So my oven apparently is not working. So I'm going to just quickly transition this to some sort of stovetop recipe. But of course, the first time I do something like this, the oven doesn't work. So that's just the way the world goes. So we're going to audible quickly here, but everything else I've been saying should be working for you guys. Where did I learn cooking techniques? All over the place. There's all kinds, right now particularly, there's all kinds of great television and other media for food. Right? So YouTube's got a bunch of great people that cook on there. Binging with Babish, his whole media empire is great. Glenn and Friends. Netflix has got some great shows. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. Cooking with Nadia. A bunch of food documentary shows. And everything that you watch with food, you can pull a technique or an idea out and then apply it to other recipes, right? So techniques don't have to be particular to a certain recipe. Usually you can transition them and ingredients across a whole wide spectrum of dishes. But you guys give me a minute. I'm going to try to figure out a way to cook everything in about the same amount of time as you all are on the stove. All right. So hopefully no one else has this sort of problem where your oven decides to no longer work. But let me show you what I rigged up, and hopefully we can get it to work out. So we've got a going with red peppers, and that rosemary sausage smells amazing. And then here's my baking dish. Baking dish is just on a mini sheet tray with a Dutch oven lid on it. So hopefully we'll get enough heat to cook the tomatoes, but you guys might have to eat without me, because I suspect it will take a little bit longer, but it should work.
You can come over here, Alex. We'll have plenty.
Say again?
You guys can come over to our house.
Yeah, right? Apparently we're right down the street from each other.
Yeah.
It's like everyone lives in Decatur, or Tucker. I think someone's in Tucker. All right. So I'm trying not to burn the kitchen down, but we'll see what happens. Already had one disaster, so. What's one more? No other mishaps out there, right? Everyone else is doing good?
Is your garlic ready?
Say that again, Barbara?
Your garlic ready?
Mine's not, because the oven was off.
Oh, okay.
Because the gas supply apparently is not working. But yours is probably getting close.
Okay, because I'm just not sure what to do with it. So I was going to watch you. So should I take mine out or just keep it?
If the garlic is soft, when you cook it with a knife, take it out. And it'll continue to soften a little bit if you leave it wrapped up in that foil.
Okay.
What we want is to get it soft, and then we'll open it up and let it cool. And what we'll actually do is we'll squeeze those cloves out.
Oh,
So it's deeply satisfying if you're one of those people that likes picking things, because you can just squeeze the whole clove out.
all right. Thank you.
Oh, we're seeing something there. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that is garlic smushed on.
Oh, there we go.
Bread, since we're all in Decatur. That's Oakers Market bread, baguettes, and we smushed our roasted garlic on it.
It's delicious like that. And that garlic gets so like sweet and almost buttery. It's fantastic. I'm glad to see we have some fans of it. All right, let me check on my rigged up cooking contraption. And if you added the pasta already, it's probably a good time to test it. And mine is just there, still got a little bite. All right, so right at the al dente stage. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it and drain it, and we're just gonna set it aside. It can hang out, not gonna be a problem, because it's gonna get mixed in with those tomatoes later. Before I drain my pasta, I'm going to be saving about a cup or so of the pasta water. I'm not going to use all of it, but I just want to have it in case I need that much. All I do is take a measuring cup like this and just dip it into that water and hold on to some. Okay, you can use the other style of measuring cup too, any or a glass, whatever you need. Just save some of that water. That helps us thicken the sauce. All right, so I ended up with about a half cup of this pasta water, but you can look and see how cloudy that is. So that's all the starch that we've captured from cooking the pasta. So that will help when we go to mix the tomatoes and the creamy feta together. We're really going to create almost an emulsion, and the starch is going to help bind that together, prevent it from breaking and being oily. So we're just going to set this aside. All right, I'm checking on my garlic. Now I'm cooking mine on the stove top. So the heat is working a little bit differently. So I'm going to pull it and make sure the bottom isn't burning. To cook it on the stovetop, all I've done is set this package, a little pack, just on a baking sheet that's right on my gas burner. So totally improvising. It will cook, just we're not getting that heat from all around. So it's probably going to go a little bit more slowly. And yeah, this garlic is not quite there. I'm actually going to flip it over so that the cloves are a little more exposed to the heat. Oh, and Rita, that looks really good. You've absolutely beat me to the punch. Where is everyone else in the process?
I'm ready to move ahead.
Barbara's ready. Well, Barbara, is your tomato cooked down? Is your feta getting a little brown?
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, yeah. All right, you get that little browning on the feta and your tomatoes are nice and blistered and cooked and they popped. Time to pull it. So you guys are going to beat me to the punch. I'll keep cooking. But all we're going to do is give it a really good
They haven't
stir.
popped.
They're not all going to pop. Some will. Some will be stubborn.
Oh, sorry.
So it's kind of up to you, right? It's kind of ready to eat once they've started to cook down. If you want them to be really concentrated, just let them go. As long as they're not burning, they're still good. They'll get jammier and more intense the longer you go. You want a little nice browning on the feta. That's my favorite part. We might be end up eating pizza. Who knows at this point?
So what is your favorite pizza? We're partial to Avellino's, which is next door to Al. Yeah. So it's
I have
very
not tried Avellino's yet. I drive by it all the time. We go to Fellini's.
here. Did you just move here yesterday?
Like 3 years ago. No, we go to Fellini's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I make the pizza a lot of the time.
Oh.
So that's that was the problem, is we're eating it so much.
So
Avellino's is on the list.
you also like Bruni Napoli?
Yes. Yes, we've been there.
Yeah, and Avellino's is the closest that we come on this side of town. I would be curious to hear what everyone's favorite pizza place is.
Yeah, I got to do research here. Who's got a favorite?
So Fellini's.
Barbara, did you say Fellini's?
No, that wasn't me, but I don't really have a favorite. It's been a long time since I've gotten the pizza out.
Yeah, maybe it's time to explore.
We tend to make our own as well because we haven't gotten any special favorites in Atlanta. I'm from the Northeast originally, so it's hard to compare to the New York pizza.
Oh, that's what all you people say. We had pizza at our wedding. A lot of my wife's family's from Connecticut, so of course we got the, it's not the same. It's the water. It's good pizza.
Well, no, there's something special about a New York pizza and the special thin crust that they make in the New York pizzerias. You can fold it, you can eat it, but there's a lot of good pizza that isn't New York style pizza.
That's true. There is something to be said about getting it from the source.
Yeah, he's a New Yorker.
I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah. I'm from Florida. We're used to New Yorkers.
That's right, because they all go there on the weekend.
Coast. Let's see. Ankita says, "Oh, Kevin, you have an uni? I'm jealous. You could do this in an uni. I could use a different type of cheese. So Vera, what you need is a feta that is a block, that is a high fat feta, not like a crumble or anything. So like the feta in your sausage is not going to really have as much fat. It's not going to have as much cheese as you want for this recipe. It's still going to be good. The roasted tomatoes and sausage will be good, just slightly different. Let's see, Monique's in Fayetteville. She knows. Okay.
So I have another question.
Yes, hit me.
So I actually don't want to eat this tonight because I'm a guest in somebody's home and they are not here tonight.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, it's a good time for me to cook and then put it all away and have it ready for them when they get home tomorrow. So should I assemble everything tonight and then put it in the, or how should I do this?
I would not assemble the pasta and the tomato feta. I would keep the tomato feta and then whatever add-ins you want in there.
Okay. So I should put the basil into the tomato feta like now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you have fresh basil, you're just going to kind of tear it probably into pieces, maybe like this.
Okay.
You just toss it in there. It's going to wilt a little bit, but it's going to retain a lot of that good like basil flavor.
All righty.
Aroma, and as much basil as you want. Okay, so just kind of eyeball that.
Okay.
If you're using dried, you probably want to not use quite as much. Dried is a little more intense.
Yeah. I have some fresh. And then what about the garlic?
So if you did the whole roasted garlic,
yes,
you're going to take the clove and you're going to squeeze it out. You could add that in now. It'll almost turn into a paste, so it'll disappear when you stir it in there.
Okay.
And that lets you add as much garlic as you want.
Okay. And then tomorrow, I put in the pasta and then stir everything up together and and do it on the stovetop or put it in the microwave.
If I was reheating it, I probably would do the oven.
Oh,
okay. The bottom might burn on you a little bit. And because it's a little dense and there also is a good bit of fat, the microwave tends to heat unevenly.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for taking all my questions.
No, questions are great.
Okay.
Love questions. Kevin had another one, pizza oven. Yeah, you'd have to do it in a skillet. The glass wouldn't take thermal shock, I don't think. Kevin, also with the pizza oven, the sugars in the tomato might burn on you before the feta gets to where you want it. Because that block of feta is a little dense. The center is probably not going to be melty and soft, while the outside of the feta and the tomatoes will start to burn. So 900 degrees is probably not ideal for this recipe, but you can make it work. I've also thought about doing this on a smoker or a grill, because it would work there. You just have to watch the heat.
I'm so jealous that somebody has a pizza oven.
I know. I've been looking at those unis for such a long time. We got to find out where Kevin lives.
Yeah. House invasion.
Yeah. We'll just all go over. He can't say no to this many people. All right. Well, I'm behind everybody. My tomatoes are just starting to blister now that they're on the stovetop. I didn't want to show off these onions though, because they are getting right where we want them. So here's our ovens. We have a little bit of blackened. The butter is blackened a little bit on the outside here, but we look at the onions themselves, they've got a deep brown, and a lot of them are quite brown and soft. One more stir and another, 5 minutes, and these are gonna be good to go. Everything else is behind since the oven decided to not be on. Yeah, I think a smoker with like a really light wood at about 375, 400 for a little bit would work really well with this recipe. Also gets the oven out of the equation, so it doesn't heat up the house. Let's see. Everybody else that was cooking, doing okay. Rita's there, Barbara's there. I think Monique said she was doing all right. Michelle, I didn't hear if you and your kids had gotten close to the end.
Unfortunately, they bailed on me, so.
They stayed at the pool.
They did. They stayed at the pool and bailed on me, so I'm kind of doing my own thing here.
All right. Were you still cooking it, or are you just waiting to do another dinner?
No, I prepping everything. And then when they didn't show, I said, okay, I'll just play along and we'll do it when they get back.
It's a great recipe for kids who are trying to cook, just because there's not a lot of cutting, no complicated prep. Super fun to watch the tomatoes pop.
Absolutely.
All right. So Vera, did yours turn out okay? I know it seems like you went with the sausage route.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm not making it tonight. I'm just here for the camaraderie because I have a
Gotcha.
modern milkman and he's bringing me cherry tomatoes next week. He's great. I have dairy, milk, well, milk is dairy, but cheese, fresh salsa, all kind of fresh vegetables, and he's bringing tomatoes next week. So I thought I'd wait till next week. And I have red beets. I've been experimenting with red beets. I've been making Cajun borscht. That's kind of how I cook. I just kind of throw it in there and see how it works out. So it's more of a gumbo than a borscht. But I put some baby Swiss cheese on it today and I melted it thoroughly. It was totally delicious. That's why I asked you about the cheese, because I'm thinking about using this baby Swiss. And again, it's from Millersburg, Ohio, and it's the best cheese in the United States, winner of the cheese competition in Wisconsin of all places. So so I've been doing calisthenics, which is why I don't have my camera on, but I'm just watching to get some tips on this. But it's a lot of fun. That's probably more information than you ever wanted, but there you go.
No, love to hear it. I don't know if the baby Swiss is going to work, just because it gets kind of so melty and stringy. You can try it. I'd be curious to see how it turned out. Just has that different texture. I think might not mix together with the tomatoes super well, but yeah, I want like a guy to bring me vegetables all the time. This is a great recipe for like the garden fresh tomatoes though, because they really shine in it. All right. I unfortunately am not going to get any browning of the feta since I'm doing it on a stovetop, but mine's getting close. See, I see Rita is eating, so I don't know if that means it's done or we're just
No,
snacking.
we've decided to dip our baguette into the garlic mixture.
Yeah, that's a winning move.
It's a crappy Publix baguette, but it's so much better when it's heated up.
Publix makes good baked goods.
Yeah, but not the baguettes.
Okay.
It's not a farmer's market baguette.
No, okay.
So the other thing to do, and I know Monique talked about garlic bread being like your son's favorite. Take a stick of softened butter and a whole, maybe I would do 2 heads of that roasted garlic and just beat them in together. And now you have garlic butter. That's
Yum.
garlic bread you can make.
How old is your son?
He's 2, and he's actually eating some now.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big bread lover.
I have a 2 granddaughter who also loves bread.
Mm-hmm. It's an automatic winner. We have pizza or any sandwich, anything, like it works for him. You can put anything on it and he's like, all right, as long as there's bread, you can spread avocado, you can even puree Brussels sprouts. He wouldn't care. He's like, oh, there's bread there. Okay.
Yeah, took the iPad and showed him the dog. The dog is making noises.
He's just sitting here now waiting for dinner. He's just waiting for something to fall off the counter.
He gets to lick the plates, you know.
Keep him away from the garlic.
So here's a little known thing. My granddaughter, who is 2, has an egg allergy, and Avelinos does not use egg when they make pizzas.
In the dough.
Good to know.
Oh, most places shouldn't.
You wouldn't think so, but if you have to like really carefully ask, because some of them like brush it on as a glaze.
Yeah, they use it as a wash on the crust.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for the browning.
And in some of the other mixtures that they make, there may be egg in it, egg white to thicken it or something, so.
Like on the calzones, they'll do that.
Yeah, I
And
can
she's like EpiPen territory, man.
I have a coworker who has a red meat allergy.
Oh,
So any place that cooks meat on like the same thing as like the same like griddle, like a chicken and then like a piece of steak.
Yep.
Isn't so
Yep.
tricky.
yeah.
Yes, it can be very tricky and dangerous if you're severe allergy.
Absolutely. That's why you should make pizza at home. That'll be the next one once I have a working oven.
Our oven doesn't get hot enough to make pizza at home. It barely gets hot enough to make bread.
I use the baking steel.
Yeah. We don't have that.
I've been using a Ramertoff to bake bread, believe it or not.
What's that?
A Ramertoff? It's a clay.
Okay. Yeah. Like the clay pot.
They're European in origin.
I'll show it to you.
But the other thing, if you
want
to make pizza, you can make pizza on a big green egg because that'll get up to 550, 600, and you can.
Yeah.
And we actually have a pizza stone. You throw that on the big green egg, and it's like having a bread oven.
I'm waiting to get one of those.
So this is a Ramertoff.
Yes.
It's a clay thing. The bottom of the inside is glazed and the top is not. You soak it in water and then you cook in it. You start it in a cold oven and you cook it.
I bet you get a great oven spring from the moisture and the steam.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It looks
It's
great. I've
really
used
good
one
for rolls and rice dishes, rice and chicken, things of that nature.
And actually it's really good for bread.
And then surprisingly good for bread.
I've made bread in one, and my mother-in-law has one. Kevin's is almost there. Malia says, is there any cocktails I recommend? All of them.
Is there any cocktails you don't recommend? That's the shorter list.
What's the thing they drink in Chicago that's really bad?
He made like a Negroni, but with something else. Aperol instead of Campari.
Oh, I love it. You can't, I forgot what that's called, but that is a cocktail.
So Alex, not to dominate, but was your family Northern Italian? Did they make pizza?
My great-grandparents were, I think, from Campania, but I'd have to find it. I can't remember what town.
Because my mother was a redhead and very light-skinned like you.
Well, the other half is all Chicago, or not Chicago, I'm thinking Chicago, Scottish.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll do it.
The Scottish side, because my great-grandfather, I'm 6'3", he was like down here when I was like 12. So didn't get a lot of the physical genes from them.
Yeah.
Hopefully the longevity though, he lived to be 96, so we'll see.
Excellent.
All right, let me check on my hacked together little oven setup. All right, so let's see. I've got my onions where I want them, beautiful and dark and soft. So I just went ahead and combined them with the red pepper. I ended up sauteing that red pepper with these sausages. which got wonderfully browned. I can really smell the rosemary and the French style lamb sausage. So I'm excited to chop these up. My feta is super soft and creamy. My tomatoes are almost there, so mine's going to be done shortly. Let's see. Oh, yep, we are recording this. You get to see my oven fail spectacularly. And let's have to audible, but that's part of the joy of cooking and life itself, isn't it? Making do. And we have drinks, so can't be that bad. All right, so I am, I think, right at the point where I'm almost ready to combine mine. So I'm going to try to do this. It's kind of a two-handed maneuver. Let's see if I can orient it correctly. So I just crank the heat up on this. The feta is extremely creamy, and you can see the block is kind of coming all apart. Tomatoes, my oil is bubbling away. My tomatoes, a lot of them are split, just about to. And we see we have a lot of olive oil, right? So what we're going to do is stir it pretty vigorously. And we're going to use a little bit of that pasta water and add just a little bit at a time. We don't want to add a lot of extra moisture, but the starch is going to help emulsify it. This is also where I'm going to add my basil at the very end. I like to do a pinch of red pepper flake. I like it a little bit hot. And then after I combine it with the pasta is when I'm going to add all the other add-ins. So the sausage, the spinach if you did that, garlic, onion, etc. So let's see if I can capture. So I wasn't planning on doing it this way. What this is going to look like. So I'm just going to stir a little bit, make sure the olive oil is underneath the feta. And this pan is super hot, so I'm trying to burn myself. Got my super starchy pasta water. You can still see how cloudy that is. So we're just going to do, I'm going to do maybe a quarter cup of that, about half of what I had. And stir, try not to splash. But that little bit of starch is actually already helping. I'm going to stir, and I'm looking for any of those clumps of feta. I'm going to kind of work into the olive oil water mix. And it's just getting really creamy looking. And I can tell there's a little oil coming to the top, but it's really mixing in there. I'm going to add, go ahead and use all this water. So I'm going to use about half a cup. Your mileage may vary, and it's going to depend on how much starch you had in that water. I'm sorry that we're running a little late since the oven decided to not cooperate. I like kind of squeezing the tomatoes, but maybe that's just like a me thing. All right, so we see that this is creamy. It's pretty well emulsified. So this is where we're going to add it to our pasta. I've got my big pot of pasta here. It's still warm. It's not piping hot. And we're going to either carefully dump this dish into here, or we're going to spoon it. So we're going to pick it up and see how daring we feel. Yeah, we're going to dump it. Okay. So dumped in there, and then there's still some goodness in this dish. I'm gonna take a flexible spatula and gather, because I hate wasting stuff that I spent a long time cooking. So you can see there's all this extra feta left on there, and that is coming with us. We're not leaving anybody behind. There. Okay, let's get this hot pan out of the way. Burner off. And now we've got it in with the pasta, and we're just going to combine. So if you're like Barbara and you're making it a day ahead, don't combine it yet. Go ahead and wait. So it should be a nice thin sauce. You're going to have some bigger chunks of tomato. The feta should be really evenly incorporated. And we're going to taste a piece. So I've got a nice fat rigatoni. Creamy, tangy, get sweetness from the tomato. So all we need left to do is I'm gonna add a little pepper, a little bit more red pepper, because I really love this stuff. And I'm not gonna add any more salt because that feta has got a lot of salt and we salted the water. I'm gonna take the basil. This is probably about a cupful of basil. And I've just got a whole bunch, and I'm just gonna tear it up and toss the pieces in with the pasta. The heat of the pasta and the sauce will release a lot of these oils. From the basil, it's going to get very, very fragrant, and it's going to wilt just slightly. And I finished everything with a crack of fresh ground pepper, because I love it. All right, so we're just going to give this one more little toss. And we're almost ready to plate it. I have given up, if you've noticed, on my whole roasted garlic because I could not figure out a good way to do it on the stove. It was going to burn. So I did saute or put a little garlic in with the tomatoes. So I've got the garlic there. If I was really missing it, we could use a little granulated. It's not quite the same, but it gets the job done. I'm serving this in a bowl rather than a plate. We're going to come back over where the light is better. I don't have crazy shadows on my face. All right. So I'm not going to really serve this in a particularly neat style. You know, I'm not plating it up at a 3-star restaurant or anything. I do tend to try to get the tomatoes that fall to the bottom out, so scoop down into the pot. We want a good mix of the tomato, and we're going to end up with a very colorful bowl here between the pasta, the brightly colored tomato, the green of the basil, little white specks of feta. And then we're going to have our additional pieces. So for this particular version, I'm going to keep the sausage whole and put it with a little bit of our caramelized onion and red pepper. So we're going to end up with a real kind of sweet and savory. So we've got our Moroccan sausage on this particular bowl, those red peppers, and we can see red pepper is soft, but has a nice little browning on the sides. Really sweet, delicious flavor. It's concentrated by being in the oven. That's really good. I could eat a whole bowl of those, but that is our dish right there. Now, of course, the first one goes to Samantha.
Thank
Goes to
you.
her. Rita's got some nice plates. Not sure. Is it a farm scene painted on the bottom of those? Love it. Hey, that looks good. You went with the farfalle. Good choice of pasta. I've definitely made this dish with that before. Anything with all those little crags work great to capture the sauce.
Well, we had a wonderful time and we're gonna eat it while it's fresh and delicious.
I am glad that yours came out well. How about everybody else?
Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you for a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good night. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Barbara, I hope it turns out good tomorrow. You gotta let me know how it comes out.
Thank you.